Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Hello again, everybody. I'm Phil Wirtz, President and CEO of the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we are honored today to be joined by one of the most renowned golf writers in the United States, if not the world. He is Ron Green Jr. Ron, thanks for making the drive from Charlotte, coming to Paradise in the Pines.
It is never a bad drive coming from Charlotte down here. Always happy to make it.
I asked you, what else did you come down for? You're playing golf. You said you came down just to do the podcast. Come on now.
I might wander around make a couple stops while I'm down here, but weather's beautiful, and I just like being here. It feels different down here.
It's a cool vibe, isn't it?
It really is.
You got to hit the barbecue at Pinehurst Brewing, maybe.
That's a good idea. I might do that.
In all your travels, you recently traveled to the Masters. Kind of a different Masters, just because you had the whole LIV thing going on. But Jon Rahm, he kind of reminds me of Russell Crowe in Gladiator, the Spaniard, because when he gets a hold of something, like he did in the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, I mean, he just does not let it go. How significant was that win for Jon Rahm?
Well, I mean, hugely significant. I think that's not going to be the end of him. He's got a U.S. Open, now he's got a Masters. Yeah. I mean, I think he's just made for big events, I think. He's got a big game. He can do about anything. He's not afraid of the moment. And he's sort of really grown into this presence out there. I mean, he's a big player, and I think, just sort of we're starting to get the full Jon Rahm now. I think, he's, from our perspective in the media, he's a tremendous interview. It's remarkable to think that 10 or 12 years ago he came to college here, couldn't speak English. Now you listen to him, and he speaks it better than I do. And he's very thoughtful. He has he'll share his opinions. He stops and thinks about questions when you ask him, and I'm just really, really impressed with him.
I'm impressed with his sense of history. I mean, he really understands, the game, where it was, where it is, and where it's going to go, and his place in it. I think that's important too.
For sure. And I think he does. He sees the big picture. He can lock into the moment, but he appreciates what's come before and what things mean. Just listen to him talk after the Masters about the respect he will pay to the green jacket. Obviously, he's sort of given some guidelines on what you do and don't do, but you could tell what it meant to him and to be part of that. And I can only imagine the feeling that must be to know you're going to be able to be at that champions dinner on those Tuesday nights into the future. And I think probably hosting that first one might be a little unnerving, but serve him enough wine and it'll go easy.
I think, and you talked about how he's changed. I mean, he couldn't even speak English when he first came here. And I think, too, because a few years ago, he was pretty fiery. I mean, he would lose his temper on a regular basis. How much have you seen his demeanor change and to be more of a mature type golfer?
Yeah, I think there's a good bit of that. I think part of what makes him who he is that fire and that passion. And I think he's one of those, you'd see it sort of like a solar flare, just bang, there it was, and it would go away. I think he's refined that a little bit. It's still there. And there's still times when I think you can see the frustration or irritation, or whatever you want to call it. But I think he's internalized it more and found a better way to use it. I think he is, I think he's one of those names now when he gets on a leaderboard and whether it's at Oak Hill for the PGA or whatever, I mean, he's the one that makes other players turn their heads now.
How concerned were you and maybe some of the other writers in the media room when Phil Mickelson shoots a 65, Brooks Koepka had a chance to win, Patrick Reed, all these LIV guys? I mean, there was a chance a LIV player was going to win this Masters. Was there a concern? Was there like, hey, how am I going to write this story?
No, I think we're always looking for material, and there's plenty of material there. I thought it was, the LIV thing was such a big deal leading into it. Such a storyline. And I kind of forgot about it as the tournament unfolded. Then toward the end, they end up there were LIV guys in three of the top four spots.
Mickelson, Koepka, and Patrick Reed.
Yeah, I mean, that became a big thing. I think partly overshadowed because who saw Phil Mickelson doing what he did? I mean, there was no reason other than whatever that magic switch that Phil finds when he comes down Magnolia Lane to expect him to do what he did. Even Brooks Koepka, given the fact he hadn't played that well, but he'd started to show the signs. So I thought that just added a layer to it. Now, had they won, would it be different? I don't know. I think if I'm on the LIV side of things, be very happy and ecstatic about the way, for all those of us, me included, question what the competition means over there, how much it really matters to the players. That was a nice positive referendum for them. Now the next one will come at the PGA Championship, where a lot of LIV guys will be there. Augusta it's its own unique creature over there. Yeah. And players know how to play. They go there, and it just, certain players are going to play well there every year, it seems like. I mean, Jordan Spieth goes in there and gets it. Phil does. So I think the PGA Championship will be interesting to see. But it was a different Masters. I mean, the weather didn't help us, but then with the Tiger stuff and all that, it's just remarkable what that tournament does and the way it finds stories and creates narratives.
Talking about stories, I mean, pre-Masters, everybody's talking about Rory McIlroy, the career Grand Slam. Didn't even make the cut. I mean, does Augusta live rent-free in Rory's head? I mean, it seems like it is. I think he practiced, 91 holes. Took a different approach maybe this year in advance of that. But, I mean, is he ever going to win the Masters? I mean, or is it just in his head?
I thought this was a really, really good chance for him to win it. And then, I told somebody he didn't even flame out because he never found a spark.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought it was crazy. I mean, I appreciate, having come from a TV background, that they wanted to talk to players during the round. When he's talking during the round, I think it was on the 9th hole, had 119 in, and hits it not even up to the top ridge where the flag was in the back that day, and it rolled back 45 feet. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're not even close to making the cut. And he's doing live TV. So I thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah, they talked to those guys early about it, and they all signed off. I talked to Justin Thomas, who did it, and then proceeded, I think, to bogey the last 4 holes to miss the cut. And he said that, talking to them had nothing to do with it. He goes, I was fine with it.
I think Max Homa did as well.
Yeah, Max Homa. I mean, he's really good at it. I love what they're doing. I'll be interested to hear what Rory says. He took the time off, skipped Harbor Town when he was expected to play there. So he's coming to Charlotte next week for the Wells Fargo. And there will be a lot of questions like, okay, you're the architect of this new system with the mandated designated tournament things, and you're the first one to, take what was for him a $3 million hit. Why'd you do it? I think he just needed the mental break. I think he'd played a lot of golf. He's been out front so much. And the Augusta thing, as much as you want to try to minimize it or embrace it or whatever, by the time he teed off, I think he was 6 shots behind before he even hit his first tee shot.
Yeah.
And suddenly I think he goes out and bogeys the first hole. You're playing from behind like, oh no, here we go again. And it just, when it got away, it just fully got away. He's still, I think, 5 years younger than Ben Hogan was when he won his first Masters. So he's still
got time.
And 3 years younger than Phil. So he's still got time, but he's building up a lot of baggage there.
Rahm double bogeyed the first hole and went on to win the Masters.
Yeah.
So let's look at these guys. Rory needs to win the Masters to win the career Grand Slam. Jordan Spieth needs to win the PGA Championship to do the same. Rahm is 2 away. He's got 2 tough ones down already, Masters, U.S. Open. Who wins the career Grand Slam first, Rory, Jordan, or Rahm?
Well, since Jordan has the next chance, I'll say Jordan. Right. He's playing pretty well. I mean, he's been really good, had a chance there. Obviously, could have won at Hilton Head. Right. I don't know that Oak Hill, the last 2 PGAs at Oak Hill, they've given us Sean McKeel and Jason Duffner. Right. So you might be looking for an outlier there, but, I think Spieth's got a chance. I just look at Rory, and I can see Rory walking around in a green jacket under the big tree up there years from now, being one of those guys. But I thought the same thing about Greg Norman and about Davis Love and some others who never got it. So, I don't think Phil's going to win a U.S. Open. He's come close a lot of times, but I think that one, who knows? they are playing on the edge of Hollywood this year. So
That'd be a hell of a script.
After Augusta, what if he finishes second at Augusta and then goes and wins the U.S. Open at LA? Now that might be a little too big to write there.
Right.
That's where you go call one of those screenwriters, say, come on over here and take care of this for me. I don't know. I think I'm interested to see how Jordan does, because Rory's bills up for 8 months and has all that time, and Jordan sort of just comes quietly, and if he gets into it on the weekend, it won't be quiet anymore.
He's playing the Wells Fargo, I'm sure, right?
He was uncertain. Okay. They can take one designated tournament.
I know
off.
he played 9 out of 10 weeks or 9 out of 11 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. Well, when he left Hilton Head, he said he thought he was playing Charlotte, but he's committed to playing the Nelson and the Colonial in there in Texas, and there's a Memorial and the PGA, so it could be 5 in a row for him, and he's pretty reluctant to do that. But he was leaning toward Charlotte last anybody saw him before they went off on another spring break with the boys, and now the girls down there.
Right. Well, you mentioned the PGA Championship. Let's talk about that a little bit at Oak Hill Country Club in Rochester, New York. You mentioned Duffner and Sean McKeel had won. Jack won the other PGA Championship in 1980, and then U.S. Open. Curtis Strange won. Was that his first or second?
That was his.
That was 1989.
Second.
That was his second. That's right. Won 88, 89. Lee Trevino won it in 68, and Kerry Middlecoff in 1956. So the 7th major championship at Oak Hill. It lengthened over the years from the early days of what they was 6,900 yards, now 7,102. I think it's still playing that same yardage. What can we expect? I mean, we don't see Oak Hill too often. What can we expect of that golf course?
What I remember from the two I've been to is just like a classic big northeastern golf course. Mm-hmm. I remember Sean McKeel hitting that 7-iron in there and just sort of like disbelief watching that. I just think you just got to keep it between tree lines. It's just hard. It asks sort of the major championship questions, and I don't know. I don't have any sense of what kind of scores you're going to have to shoot up there, but I think pars are generally pretty good scores in major championships. So the PGAs tend to let you score a little bit more than some others. So I don't have a good feel, because it's sort of, you don't go there often enough, but Lee Trevino and Curtis Strange winning their majors up there, that speaks to the pedigree.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the PGA. The PGA of America is going to bestow you with the Lifetime Achievement Award. You worked so many years, and certainly deserving honor. Your father covered 60 Masters. You're the first father-son duo to win that Lifetime Achievement Award. What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's, I was shocked when I got the call back in December about it. Flattered, just to be considered in the group that, you read from the Furman Bishers and the Dave Kindreds and the, Tim Roseforts and all the people who've won it before me. And I want to think I'm not old enough for a Lifetime Achievement Award, but evidently I am. And it's just, it just means so much. I remember what it meant. I guess it was 15, 18 years ago when my dad won. And
he won in 06.
Yeah. And it just, was such a special thing. And after I told him that I'd gotten this, he told me a story. He said, when he won, Furman Bisher told him, he said, that's like winning the World Series for what we do. So it's really, really nice. And the reaction and response from people is, I'm continuing to get it. And it really, it's really something special.
What was it like growing up with Ron Sr.? Obviously, writer, prolific writer. You saw a lot, and obviously inspired by him. How did he make you become the man you are and the writer you are today?
Well, just following him around, watching and listening to stories. Growing up in Charlotte, it was a very different Charlotte than what Charlotte is now. We had minor league, AA baseball. I'm old enough to remember seeing Reggie Jackson play minor league baseball for Birmingham.
Wow.
So maybe I do qualify for that Lifetime Achievement. We had NASCAR wasn't even a big thing. We had minor league hockey. We had AA baseball, and
the arena was the Independence arena.
It's still there.
Yeah.
And I was, as a kid in what I would call junior high, go down there and usher, and I remember ushering for all sorts, Glenn Campbell shows and I remember watching the Carpenters of all people doing a sound check early, and so way back, but just being around, listening to my dad tell stories. He would take me to the baseball games. He also did the public address announcing because he worked for the afternoon paper. And I'd go to the ballpark probably 25, 30 nights a year and sit in the press box, tiny little thing that it was. And, we'd go to college football games on Saturday with him. He'd ride up there and cover a game at Duke or North Carolina or wherever. And we'd just be around and listening to golf stories and playing some golf as a kid. And, one thing led to another. And I had a brief idea I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, but then
Really?
I realized the academic, forget being the doctor, just getting there. I'm like, I got to take this. No, I'll just be a sports writer. So, and I just sort of fell into it and kept going and was around it and felt comfortable there and gotten to do a lot of really, really cool things through the years.
So you went to UNC Charlotte.
Started there and then transferred
to
North Carolina. I was actually at UNC Charlotte the year the 49ers and Cedric Maxwell went to the Final Four where North Carolina was. And I had already known I was going from one to the other that fall. And I remember my dad took me to a dinner on Friday night and Coach Smith was there. And he came over and asked me, he says, how you feel about things this week? And I'm like, well, I am coming to Carolina, and I'd been to his basketball camp forever, but that was really cool at UNC Charlotte when they had that Final Four run. They went to the championship of the NIT when it was a big deal back then. And I remember I was working for the student newspaper, so we got to go everywhere. And I spent 10 straight days in New York with the UNCC basketball team because you didn't expect they were going to make this whole run, but they played the whole tournament up there. That was cool. And then the next year's the Final Four, and then off to North Carolina. And I worked in Chapel Hill afterward for about 3 or 4 years, went to Greenville, South Carolina for a while, then was at the Charlotte Observer for 20 plus years.
Well, let's go back to Chapel Hill because you happened to go there at a pretty amazing time and covered the Final Four in 1982 where some guy named Michael Jordan made the shot to beat Georgetown and all the other NBA greats that played on that team. What was it like to cover that team?
I remember sitting in the original Charlotte Coliseum when Michael played his first college game. They played Kansas there. And, you knew he was pretty good, but you didn't know that. But what he became, and I mean, James Worthy was sort of the star.
Yeah.
But the whole backstory, because Carolina had been, I think, to 6 Final Fours with Dean and had not won. And then Michael hits the shot in Georgetown and Freddie Brown throws the pass and all that. I don't save a lot of things, but I still have my notebook from that game. And we were standing on the floor talking to Michael after the game near the shot. And I've still got my scrawled out notes there. And just,
that's cool.
And in my phone, there's a picture from the next year of me sitting in the locker room with Michael.
I've seen that picture. Yeah.
Somebody said it looks like Keith Partridge, if you knew the Partridge family, with my hair and all that. But it was really cool, and being around him then and covering him some through the NBA and all that, and seeing who he became. It's very good fortune. They're sort of like coming along at the same time as Tiger Woods. Yeah.
Like the Masters, UNC and Duke always delivers, as Jay Billis likes to say, and many people say. Now that you've got John Shire and Hubert Davis, I mean, do you think we'll eventually see something of the likes of Dean Smith and Coach K? I mean, those are pretty.
And Rory Williams too. I mean,
Rory Williams. I mean, high praise for those amazing coaches, Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, that our rivalry always delivers. And do you think Shire and Davis have it in them to go long runs at these universities and keep it going?
I hope they do. I mean, because it's so good, and it's been so good for so many years. And I was fortunate to cover a lot of games between those teams, and just it's a national game too.
Yeah.
The 2 times they play in the regular season. Transition. I mean, I think Duke's going to be very good next year. North Carolina can only be better than it was, I would think. So I don't know. I think the transitions are really different. It's interesting the way, Roy goes and watches the games and Coach K watches them, but from an office, and, they actually have some hospitality thing. You can watch the games with him, but he's not in the arena. How they've gone about it. They're such big brands that I think they're going to be fine, but I don't know that maintaining the height or the level that they had it for so long.
Yeah.
It will be hard. But then again, I mean, they've done it for about 40 years, so it might just keep rolling along.
I tell you what, I was at that last game, Coach K's last home game. I tell you what, Carolina whipped them the last 7 minutes of that game, and you could hear a pin drop in that place. I'd never been in Cameron Indoor where it had been that quiet. I know as a Tar Heel fan, were you at that game? Or
I was not. I was actually, I think I was at Bay. Yeah, I was at Bay Hill.
Okay,
and I was out with a friend watching it at a restaurant.
Yeah,
and trying to figure out if I could hear my wife's screams of joy from Charlotte all the way down to Orlando, because I mean, I didn't expect to see that happen that way, but that's that rivalry. I mean, and it just and then to beat them in the Final Four too. I would not have expected to end that way, because I mean, I can remember being in the building on campus at Duke the night they introduced Mike Krzyzewski, and sort of the two questions were, how do you say it and who is he?
Right.
And there was a time for 2 or 3 years they would invite you over on Monday to the old golf course before they built the Washington Duke Inn, to the pro shop there, and come eat pizza with Coach K on Mondays.
Right.
And
Wow.
just trying to generate interest. And then suddenly it all took off from there.
Yeah. Almost, I wouldn't say similar, but, Dean Smith didn't get off to the best start either. Coach K, and it speaks to Tom Butters and his faith in Coach K. Maybe if those guys were in today's world, they may have never survived, and who knows where that rivalry would be. But they didn't, thank goodness.
I mean, there's a story about Coach K losing at the ACC tournament in Atlanta, and everybody thinking this is the end, and
they got blown out. Yeah.
And they end up at a Waffle House or something, and, thinking it was the end, and it turned out not to be. I mean, so what is Hubert Davis 2 years in, and it didn't go so great this year? I mean, it's hard for fans to be patient. I think patience is even harder in today's world because of social media and all that. But, they need some time.
Yeah. So let's go to your current gig with Global Golf Post. Jim Nugent's a good friend of the CVB, and obviously your boss. What's it like to write, digitally versus, journalism is journalism, so you're still writing stories. But talk about your contributions to Global Golf Post. You've even write some content for us, so we appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity. I mean, the writing part is about the same. Maybe a little more flexibility and deadlines than, I don't have any of those 9 p.m. basketball games. We needed 11:05, and you look down at 11:03. They got 2 minutes to go. You're like, I'm not going to make this. So, I have a lot of freedom. They've been great to me, and basically, I cover the PGA Tour, but other things beyond that. And I have a lot of flexibility in what I want to do, and sort of can pick my schedule within limits. Come up with my own ideas. The last few years, golf has not run short of subject matter.
Right.
Between LIV and the latest hot button, the slow play thing bubbles up every 2 or 3 years, and it's bubbled up again.
Yeah.
We're right in the middle of major championship season. The way they've changed with the designated tournaments and how the success of those so far. It's been a lot of good stuff. I really enjoy it. The players you probably don't get as much one-on-one time with players as you'd like, but they're really easy to deal with. There's a lot of good people out there, and so I like the people at the tour. So it's the old thing. It doesn't feel like work when you get up. Once in a while, when you're sitting there and you got 850 words to fill, you're like, okay, it feels a little bit like work right now.
It's funny, like even when I got out of the media in 2002, and people I covered NASCAR nationally for 3 years, and they'd say, well, what's this driver like? And I would say, most of the drivers are great. Don't ask me who's great to work with, because they're all great. Ask me who's not fun to work with. I'm not going to ask you that question. But it's interesting when
you can probably guess.
I hear when you have to build relationships. I mean, obviously you're dealing with these players. You see them at events all the time. So I think it's really cool in some of the pieces I've seen about your Lifetime Achievement Award that, Davis Love speaks highly of you. I'm sure many of other players do. What does that mean to you that players come out and say, we love working with, or Rory even said, some great things about you and your work and, your style. What does that mean to you when players of Hall of Fame caliber come out and say Ron Green Jr. is he's a great guy to work with? Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the highest compliments you could get. I've known Davis since forever. I mean, my dad wrote about Davis's dad when Davis's dad was the head pro at Charlotte Country Club for a while. And so that connection. So when Davis came to North Carolina, we sort of made that connection. I've known him, for however many years. I mean, I can't believe he's that old, because if he's that old, that makes I'm even older. So, and I remember, when Rory shot 62 to win whatever it was, a 2011 Wells Fargo or whatever it's called then, I remember going in the Observer office the next morning and people saying, "Who's this guy who won the tournament in Charlotte yesterday?" I'm like, "Trust me, you're going to know who he is down the road, and you're going to remember, say, well, this first one was here." And, I remember being in the locker room and he was calling his dad, and, this big thing had happened. And, he's a blessing for us. He's just a tremendous person who sees the world. He sees the whole world and understand. He can see it from different angles. And been very fortunate that got to be around him a good bit, and he's been very, very helpful in a lot of things.
We talked about the PGA Championship a little bit. As we record this, you're getting ready to fly out to Los Angeles to go to Media Day for the U.S. Open for this year at LA Country Club. Give us a little snippet of what we can expect at LACC, because we I don't know, can't even think of the last time there was an event there that was televised. And
the Walker,
what is it about?
Yeah, the Walker Cup was there a few years ago.
Okay.
I took a tour there. A member took me around. It is right in like Wilshire Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard, and it's just, buildings all around it. And it's a really cool looking property that I think even golf fans don't know much about, just because it hadn't been seen. And it's not one you could just walk up and get yourself on with a tee time. So I'm as interested as anybody. It's sort of rustic. It's different. Holes are really close together in spots. When they drove me around, they showed me Lionel Richie's house, which sits right off one green, and the clubhouse would like to be that big.
Right.
It's just massive. Then they did tell me, said, right behind those shrubs there, like the 13th tee, the 14th tee, said, that's the Playboy Mansion. But somebody has bought it and is renovating and all that. So landmarks in Los Angeles. But, I don't know what to expect there. I know they're limiting. I think they said they sold 9,000 tickets to members, 9,000 corporate tickets, and maybe 4,000 general public. So it's going to be very, very small. And there are places just right around the cart. And I'll be interested to see at the media thing how they're going to get people from one place to the other, because it's, it's not like at a Augusta or Harbor Town or something like that, where you can just walk from one place to another easily.
And I believe Angela Moser helped tweak or help refine some of LACC, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not positive, but it sounds right.
And she's also doing the golf course, the 10th course here. Have you had a chance to go by the property there and see what she's been doing?
No, I haven't. I've talked about it 4 or 5 times.
Of course, 4-time Doak.
Yeah. So I really want to. Anxious to see it. I think it's great that there's going to be another golf course here and his name there. But I wanted to come do a story on her and what she's doing down there. And
we've tried to get her on the podcast, and Alex Podlegar, the prolific PR guy with Pinehurst Resort, said, as long as it's not between dawn and dusk, because she is on that tractor moving dirt and shaping that golf course as long as there's daylight. So we can meet you at 8 o'clock at night. So, but yeah, she's working hard on that.
Yeah, and I think I remember talking to Gil Hance when he was doing the cradle, and I think being on those bulldozers and stuff, that's the most fun they have. That's what he said. I get so much, like he went out there and, he basically shaped the cradle himself. And he came in, literally got off a bulldozer, came in, had a cup of coffee, and he told me all about it, went back out there. I can imagine if you knew how to do it, that would be great fun. Just the imagination. And then, just really having yourself in the dirt there, bringing something to life that wasn't there. So, I've been on that property, the parts of it that was the pit, whatever, years ago. But I'm very excited to see it.
What do you think about the growth of Pinehurst over the years? Next year we'll have the U.S. Open on number 2, 25th anniversary of Payne's amazing historic victory there. The 10th course being added, the USGA second headquarters here, first U.S. Open anchor site, World Golf Hall of Fame coming back. Could you imagine, when you saw Payne Stewart win in 99, that Pinehurst would become even a bigger, globally iconic destination? when it comes to golf.
And what I think is great about it is that part of it has grown, and obviously the surroundings have grown too, but I don't think it's lost that small town essence, the sort of the feeling you get, and the village type thing, and there's an embrace you almost get when you drive in here, and especially when you drive around and see it. And I mean, golf is almost literally in the air. I mean, and you hear the church bells, you hear this, you drive around, there's a golf course here, there's a golf course there. It's just the USGA thing, I think, is an enormous feather in the cap of the area, and I think it's only going to grow. I think it's what they've done with the resort and making it the anchor site. I mean, it's it's not like if something's coming, it's what's coming when,
right.
and you just identify it. I mean, you say Pinehurst area, and one word comes to mind, and it's golf.
Yeah.
And like I had a friend a couple months ago who'd been wanting to come here forever, he and his wife, and had never been. And so we came up and spent a weekend showing him around, doing stuff. And he was already booked for the fall. He said, I'm bringing some clients up here, and we're going to go. That's how much he liked it. That's
awesome. Well, I know you love playing at Pinehurst. Maybe name your top 5 courses in the area, not Pinehurst only, but I mean, are there other courses around here as well? What would you say is your 5 favorite here?
Well, I have to say the 2 at Country Club of North Carolina, because one of my best friends has a house there, and he's basically has me a room there, so I go down there as often as I can.
Well, I know that those 2 courses, I'm on the state golf panel, so Dogwood is just ranked 3rd in the state, and Cardinal 16th in the state. Just hosted the ACC Championship, which Georgia Tech just won. So both incredible golf courses.
Yeah, he's got a house on the 17th hole of the Cardinal course, which used to be the 8th hole, so his house is called Old 8. So I'm down there a lot. I love Pine Needles, Mid Pines. What they've done, what Kelly and them are doing at Southern Pines is tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I haven't gotten up to Tobacco Road, which I guess is a little out of the way from here. But it's been years, but Talamore, I remember going by. Shoot, now I'm drawing the blank. The Jack Nicklaus golf course out.
Legacy.
Yeah, because I remember playing really well and get to the final holes. Like, why did he want to do this to us? Because as I recall, it was really, really hard. It's just there's all sorts of places here that I mean, I can go play the Cradle and just I mean, I have friends who will drive down from Charlotte, have lunch. I mean, play the Cradle, have lunch, go putt the this'll do.
Yeah.
Play the Cradle again, have dinner, and come back. But you can do that. There's so many. I know you have packages and things like that, and just. My wife loves to come to Southern Pines, and it's sort of Bedford Falls in North Carolina.
Yeah,
and just spend time wandering around. I think that's I'm going to Bandon Dunes later this summer on a trip, but that is all golf. I mean, Pinehurst is all golf, but with more.
Yeah,
you're not going shopping in Bandon Dunes unless you're going in one of the pro shops.
Right,
here you could go out and go eat dinner at all these good places.
Yeah.
And you see the horse tracks and all the lake and all those sorts of things. So it's we play that what are we going to do game in 3, 4, 5 years? Are we going to leave Charlotte? Well, Pinehurst is always the place we talk about.
Well, Ron Green Jr., we appreciate your time. This is always a second home for you, Pinehurst. You're always welcome here. We appreciate your work and all your contributions to the golf industry, to journalism, and congratulations again on your Lifetime Achievement Award from the PGA.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, you mentioned packages. You can go to homogolf.com to learn more about our packages, or you can go and watch videos of this vodcast on our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. And also, if you like podcasts, be sure to download Paradise in the Pines. Once again, for Ron Green Jr., I'm Phil Wers. We'll see you next time. Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll put a couple Paradise in the Pines downloads for the ride home.
Yeah.